All right, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be going over how you can steal our exact recruitment process. If you want to know a little bit more about our track record, there's 24 plus testimonials and case studies here at zaboda.io/case-studies. Feel free to check them out, some of the brands that we've worked with. Let's jump into the rest of the video. So maybe you've seen some of the other videos where we talk about where to source talent from, or you already have your own talent pool and you've identified several candidates. Maybe you're running your own recruitment process. We're going to talk about the different mistakes that sometimes people make when running the recruitment process, and then how they can actually just steal ours and improve process and utilize it on their own. Let's say you have several different candidates. Now, the next steps is really just running them through a recruitment process. So first, this is normally what it looks like. This is a very typical process that we see, and a lot of people use this on the internet. There's a job description with a gotcha or like a Loom video. 2 to 3 days go by, they reach out, have their first interview via phone or Zoom. A couple more days go by, they have a second interview with a co-founder or other decision makers in this process. Then they have some sort of skill test or technical interview. And then eventually they're going to give a decision or an offer to the candidate. Sometimes people throw the skill test and the technical interview at the very beginning, or they don't even just jump on an interview to screen them. They just throw them a skill test. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that's the wrong approach, but a lot of times people like to view it from the business owner point of view and think, oh, how can I make this just the easiest possible thing for me? Instead of thinking about the candidates and thinking about the top tier talent and how they want to interact with you, the business owner. You need to jump in their shoes, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along through the video. Well, what are the problems with this recruitment process? A lot of people use this online. Most recruitment agencies use something very, very similar to this. The problem is it takes almost 3 weeks for a candidate to go through this process. The only candidates who have this long to wait around for a job are the ones that are simply not that good. If they're truly talented, they have many opportunities waiting for them. The other problem with this interview process is business owners are trying to make their interview process tricky because they are confusing trick questions and gimmicks like Loom videos and gotcha out of place words in a job description with a thorough and effective interviewing process. Real talent will see through this process and withdraw from the interview process or just not even apply. It's much better to be effective than trying to just appear clever with some sort of gimmick. An example is like one of these little, please record a 2 to 5 minute video outlining why you'd be a good fit for the role. I get it. The business owner wants to get 100 applicants and get 10 different Loom videos, then filter those 10 Loom videos. And then, okay, half of them don't really speak English. We've got 5. They're okay. Let's bring them to next round interviews and hopefully go from there. This doesn't work, and I'll explain why when I show our recruitment process. A far more effective process for interviewing is following this: a job description without buzzwords, gimmicks, or gotchas. Within 48 hours, reaching out to the candidates. If they're not qualified, rejecting them. If you want to invite them to those next steps, invite them to those next steps. You need to have the same speed that you have in a sales process, but with this recruitment process. You have that first interview, you brief them on those next steps. During that call or towards the end of that call, you say, here are the next steps. It's a second round interview. It's a skill test. Then we'll have a decision. This should take about a week and a half. You're setting the next expectations. They can trust you more. They realize that you're in control and you actually have a plan. You're not just another one of those agency owners or small business owners that doesn't know what they actually want. They don't want to hop into a company and just follow someone who's blindly walking around. After that first interview, within 48 hours, issue some sort of skill test or a technical test. Within 3 days of that, get back to them and give them either a rejection or bring them to a second round interview or technical interview if it's a more technical role. Within 3 days, try to have feedback or an offer to the candidate. You need to move a lot quicker with this. If we look at this takes almost 18 days, almost 21 days. If you're on the longer side of it, that's about 3 weeks. We can do this in 10 days or less and still be thorough without basically bumping into any of those roadblocks that you'd have up here if we just follow this process. We need to have the same speed that we use in a sales process. Sometimes we get questions about the job description without buzzwords, so I'll explain it a little bit more. Why be clever when you can be effective? Candidates are going to be blind to words like wizard, guru, dynamic, synergy, playmaker. Your job description is just going to be another that they decide to scroll past on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you're posting all of your jobs. Candidates are more willing to take action on applying to a role if they see clear next steps in the interview process listed in the job description. If possible, add that to that job description so they know exactly what they're getting into, and so the timelines are aligned. They're not just being led around aimlessly and questioning, okay, does this person like really run a business? Are they really that organized? Or am I going to come into their business and everything's going to be messed up and they don't really have a plan or action for anything? I've said it several times before, but it's very important, so I want to reiterate it. You need to move at the same speed that you do in a sales process. You don't want to just have someone where you send an offer and you're waiting around. You don't want to just have a call with someone and there's no clear set next steps. So from the very beginning with the job description, with those clear next steps, always within 48 hours, be contacting the people, either getting them out of the recruitment process, politely rejecting them via email, every single candidate, making sure that no stone is unturned. Everyone knows what's happening in that recruitment process if they took their time to apply to your role, or having them move to those next steps in the recruitment process. Maybe it's a skill test. Maybe it's a second round interview. Maybe you're going to be making a decision over the weekend. Always be communicating with these people so no one is left hanging. It just shows that you're actually professional. It shows that you run a real company. You're just not another agency owner who's just looking to hire a random VA. The first interview should be more of a screening call, and it should also be more about the experience and mindset of the candidate instead of making it all about the job. At first, this is going to seem a little bit counterintuitive, but the problem is if you spend all the time up front in the beginning of the interview talking about the job, the expectations, the compensation, the growth activity, and the different opportunities that they may have, then what they're going to do is they're going to force fit their experience to the job. They're going to be telling you what they think that you want to hear. You don't want it like that. You want to focus all your time on them in the beginning of the interview, and then slowly as they prove that they're qualified and you find different pieces of their resume and their experience that actually apply to your job, then start talking more about the job at hand and what the next steps could be. You don't want to have someone who just tries to tell you what they think that you want to hear. That's not very honest. You want to get that full, clear picture. Skill testing is an area where I see a lot of founders struggle, and it's not their fault. They just don't know where to put it in the recruitment process. They'll throw it before the first interviews. They'll throw it before the second interviews, right before extending an offer. But the fact of the matter is, candidates have zero incentive to do the skill test or do the work if you're not going to give them at least 15 minutes of your time on a screening interview. If they're good enough for the test task, they're good enough to meet with and take your time. Other companies such as Apple or SpaceX are able to acquire tests and technical interviews in a different order due to their brand name, but a smaller startup does not have that luxury. If you give them a skill test right before they have their first interview as some sort of test or barrier to narrow down applicants, you're basically saying, hey, do all this work and then we will see if you're worthy to join my super esteemed 4-person agency or small business or startup or whatever you want to call it. The problem is it sets a different working relationship from the very beginning, a very kind of subservient working relationship. You want someone to work with you, not for you. Don't just throw something that comes from ChatGPT and hope that it's enough of a barrier against bad candidates and that it's thorough enough to reveal true talent. The proper way to assign a test task or skill test is after that initial screening meeting with them and before the second or technical interview. It's going to ensure a lot higher number of candidates that you offer the test task to actually complete it and are quality. Another method that helps with the completion is compensation. And the compensation doesn't need to be incredibly high. It should reflect the hourly rate of the role and the estimated time it would take to complete said test task. And the reason we offer compensation, even though I get it, they're going through a job application process. You may be wondering, oh, why aren't they just clawing at the bit or chomping at the bit to work with my company? If someone's truly an A player, they're probably already employed, meaning they're going to have to take time away from their family. They're going to have to do this on the weekends or after hours to apply and go through this process, right? And so what we've noticed is if you toss them 15, 20 bucks or whatever the compensation is, you're going to get a lot higher completion rates of the test task and the skill tests. And really, what is an extra 15, 20 bucks several times for different candidates in the long run? I'd much rather do it this way and get the top-notch person to complete it, go through the process and make a hire with them than not have any payment for the skill test and still be looking 2-3 months down the road to find that perfect fit. When it comes to the content of the test task, it should mirror the actual responsibilities of the role. If you're hiring a sales rep who's going to be responsible for creating outbound messaging campaigns and identifying ideal client profiles, then the test task can be create 4 message campaigns and research 5 to 10 ICPs and do a little bit of write-up and notes on them. Basically make it mirror what's going to happen in the first 30 days or some of the tasks that they'd be doing in the first 30 days of employment. Don't have a test task that's just completely not aligned that serves as some sort of like IQ test or some sort of like personality or knowledge test. You want to actually test the skills that they will be utilizing in their employment. The second interview is where you need to be very thorough. This is where you ask deep enough questions about their past experiences so you can get an understanding of their abilities. This interview is where you do a lot more digging into the mindset, the resume, and the relevant skills. Don't just find questions with ChatGPT. Actually take the time to properly format a series of questions that will give you insights into the behavior and the mindset of the candidate. Sometimes business owners and entrepreneurs forget that during the entire recruitment process, they're selling the role to the candidate. The candidate has their own hopes and dreams and things that they want to achieve in their professional career. So you have to treat them with the respect. You need to show them that what they want to do is possible at your company. If you treat them like they're just going to be a worker, they're going to pick up on that dynamic. And you shouldn't treat your employees and people you work with like that anyway. Recruitment's going to be very, very tough for you in general. And I've had experiences where people in the past want to work with us. They come to us and they go through several rounds of interviews. We have interviewees and candidates literally pull out of the process because they don't want to work with the client. And so you have to remember to put your best foot forward during this whole process. You're constantly selling the role. You're selling the teamwork and the culture of your company. If you're not someone who's nice to work with, they're not going to want to work with you. And truly talented people will sniff that out in the interview process. The feedback or decision stage is one of the final steps in the recruitment process, and a lot of founders and businesses drop the ball. They're going to take 5+ days, 7+ days to make a decision. During that time, all the best candidates are going to get picked up. They have other roles. They have other opportunities. If you actually want rock stars to join your company, you can't allow for all just your hard work during the recruitment process to be undone by the slow communication and just dropping the ball in the final stages. Companies that are successful with attracting great talent move quickly when navigating the final stages of decision making. They understand that true talent has tons of potential offers on the table, and waiting one extra day to make a decision can lose them candidates, sending them all the way back to square one in the recruitment process. The very final step in this recruitment process is the onboarding. And this is where there's a lot of misunderstandings. People think just because this candidate's done this before and it's listed on their resume, a job as a project manager, they should just know exactly what my operations look like inside of my business. When really, their business is a new set of problems, a new set of structure. They just throw together some sort of slideshow about the company and tell the talent and new workers that they're just available in Slack if they have any questions. And 30 days later, the talent will be frustrated because they don't have clear metrics to hit. They don't feel like anyone actually cares about their success. And the founders are just going to feel like they wasted money hiring someone. They're going to get stuck in a cycle of thinking, oh, I always try to make hires and it never works out. The talent must be bad. Talent from this country is bad. Talent from here is bad. When really the founder is bad because they don't set up the talent for success. No matter how talented someone is, they're not going to have the context of your company and knowledge of what is expected of them if they do not have a complete onboarding experience from day one. If you've opened the internet in the last several years, I'm sure you know who Layla and Alex Hormozi are. They have an $85 million plus portfolio of business. According to those fantastic entrepreneurs, there should be 2 onboardings. The first being the company contextual onboarding, the company's mission, vision, core values, culture, hiring and firing practices, managing expectations, annual, quarterly goals, key leaders, decision makers, celebration and improvement practices, philosophies around pay and benefits. All of this information can be covered easily in a slideshow that can continually be updated as the company grows and develops. If you're a smaller company, this can be done by the founder. If you're larger, let's say 50+, 200+ headcount, you can have an HR department individual do this, but make sure it's written by the founder because talent can read through it and they can feel if something's just super like HR and boring. You need to make it actually something that the founder has written. Onboarding part 2 is the role-specific onboarding. And this is going to include the job description, department expectations, the key performance indicators that are tracked, the systems and technologies used, the access to those systems and technologies, the meeting schedules and cadences, and the tools and methods for achieving said KPIs. If you have any questions about the recruitment process or hiring remote talent, let us know by dropping a question in the comments below. If you want to learn a little bit more about what Zaboda does and how it could possibly help your business, go to zaboda.io and book a time to speak. Thank you.